My name is Matt Whitaker, and I'm the Oregon State Director of Compassion and Choices, and it's my pleasure tonight to play MC on what I think will be a really exciting night for all of us. A couple of housekeeping things just to get us started off. We're going to have this first portion of the program, and then we're going to take a short break before our guest of honor takes the stage for our concert tonight. So we'll have this first portion of the program, and then if you want to run and freshen up or grab one more drink before the concert starts, you'll have an opportunity to do that then. But before we dive into our program, I have to start by thanking a few people. First, I want to thank all of you for embarking on this experiment of a new event with us this year. So historically, Oregon has had a luncheon fundraiser every fall, and this year we decided that it was a good time for us all to get together and to celebrate in the evening, and I think it's been a beautiful event so far. So thank you so much to all of you for being here. Yeah. The next group I have to embarrass are all of our event sponsors for tonight who made this event possible and allowed us to do this work and to bring all of us together. So they hate it when I do this, but if you are a sponsor tonight, would you stand up and allow us to thank you as well? Wonderful. The last group that I'm going to embarrass is our event committee, who has worked tirelessly to make this beautiful event happen. I think their first meeting was the afternoon of last year's event, and they've been working since then. So would our members of the event committee please stand up and allow us to recognize you? And I'm really going to embarrass them by calling them out by name. So Governor Barbara Roberts, Don Nelson, Terry Bean, Jeremy Cochran, Betsy Moss, Lisa Nelson, Wendy Usher, Susan Woods, and our fearless leader, Susan Pryor. Let's give them all a big hand. They've done a fantastic job. I'm really excited. Another thing that I'm excited about are our VIP experiences that are in the back. So again, as we take a break between this first portion of the program and our concert, make sure you take a look at those experiences. Some of them are incredibly exciting and unique opportunities. How many times do you get to go on a tour of the Pittock Mansion with a former governor? It's pretty exciting. So make sure you take a look and place a bid on those as we have that opportunity then. And as you're doing so, you can feel really good about your gift because tonight, thanks to the generosity of an anonymous donor, every dollar that's being donated in relation to this event is being double matched. So that's really exciting. All right, enough plugs for the VIP experiences. We'll get right into the program. And to kick it off, we are so lucky to have our fearless leader, Barbara Coombs-Lee, here with us. For those of you who might be new to Compassion and Choices, Barbara has been working in this field for over 20 years, and she continues to be an innovator in end-of-life issues across the country, an example for all of us. She's been around since the beginning of the law in Oregon, and she continues to find ways that we can continue to push the envelope here in Oregon and be leaders for the entire country. So would you join me in welcoming to the stage for our 20th anniversary toast, Barbara Coombs-Lee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm so grateful for a full house and such enthusiasm. So today we're celebrating 20 years, a 20-year anniversary. And I'm also going to introduce you to Truth and Treatment, which is how Compassion and Choices can build on what's been accomplished to help fix our broken medical care system. It's audacious, and it is entirely possible, and in California, it's already happening. So 20 years. What happened 20 years ago? 20 years ago today, the U.S. Supreme Court was deliberating over a challenge to the Oregon Death with Dignity Act. And we campaigners were fighting a ballot referendum to repeal a law that had never been allowed to go into effect. Then, within a few hours, really, voters rejected the repeal and the court dismissed the lawsuit, just like that. And that night, a revolution began. And a great contest between human dignity and religious dogma, between personal agency and medical paternalism. You know, in all candor, I tell you, we had no idea of the power of medical aid in dying to change the practice of medicine. We were just after some freedom and some compassion for people who were dying. But somewhere around year 10, I think we realized our movement wasn't just about one particular treatment option at the end of life. It was also about ending the impersonal, paternalistic conveyor belt of tests and treatments that medicine had become. It was about lifting humanity above technology, getting doctors and institutions to honor the beauty and the meaning of life at least as much as its absolute duration. Medical aid in dying is the catalyst for all this. It sparks a greater potential. It's the part that shifts the focus from formulaic treatment protocols to an individual's values and beliefs. It's the part that shifts power from doctors to patients. And once those shifts occur in the consciousness of patients and the habits of doctors, nothing is the same. California is 1 year into its experience with medical aid in dying. And last week, doctors from across the state gathered in Sacramento to talk about their experiences. Matt was there, and he heard doctors reveal that having just one patient ask about aid in dying changed the way they talked with all their patients. One said it was like going back to medical school. I remembered what it's like to have a real, profound conversation with a patient. Another said, this brought me back to the reason I went to medical school. Well, we have spent 3 years in research and testing, discovering how to harness this transformative potential to disrupt the dominant paradigm, even in states that don't authorize medical aid in dying yet, even for patients who are nowhere close to dying. Once it's fully deployed, it will work for people with chronic diseases like emphysema and heart disease. It will even help people facing the ravages of dementia. It will help them navigate tough decisions about how much mental deterioration they accept and how they might chart a course that avoids lingering in their worst nightmare. We call the initiative Truth in Treatment because it enables people to choose among care options based on their real benefits and their real burdens weighed against their own values and priorities in life. We have concrete, easy-to-use tools and kits. We've got websites and phone apps, materials and messages. If you were paying attention to the screens, we were using some of those apps while we were all mingling. The fullness of the launch waits, quite frankly, for the winds of financial backing to fill its sails. But we can tame medicine's worst impulses toward unwanted, futile technology that takes so much from us and gives nothing but purposeless suffering. This is the greater mission of what began as the comparatively modest goal of enabling one compassionate, peaceful end-of-life option. So, tonight we celebrate in gratitude of these 20 years. We're grateful for the courage and the ingenuity and the hard work of so many people. We praise and thank all of you for your steadfast and generous support and your encouragement. We're happy even for the struggles, that tried our patience and our endurance, for they have honed our principles and they have strengthened our cause. We marvel at the times we were helped by gifts of grace and happenstance, synchronicities and devotions that imagination could never have conjured and no effort could ever have earned. It has been amazing. We recall and honor those who stood with us shoulder to shoulder through one skirmish after another, both victories and defeats. We all have such companions, and I, of course, think of my co-campaigners, Peter Goodwin and Elvin Sinnard. The veil of death separates us, but appreciation for their wisdom and their kindness will never die. So the toast. If we all had glasses, pretend glasses, with pride and humility, joy and sorrow, we raise our glasses to this 20-year journey. As usual, the journey ends at a beginning we seem to know for the first time. Awe and wonder at the beauty of life, the mystery of death, and the power of love and love alone to see us safely across the threshold. We drink to these things.
You know, one of our VIP experiences is dinner with Barbara, and I bet she would write you a toast too. It was beautiful. Thank you. Each year, it's my honor to stand up here and honor one volunteer who exemplifies what it means to work to improve care and expand choice at the end of life. Tonight, it's my honor to present that award. But to do so, I want to introduce another one of our wonderful volunteers, which is Betsy Moss, to come to the podium.
These are really high. I guess I'm shorter than Barbara. Katy Powell, daughter of a father who fought for the law and was able to use the law. Katy Powell, mother, wife, grandmother. Katy Powell, award-winning realtor. Katy Powell, tireless client service volunteer. Generous, kind, lots of fun, and my dear friend, Volunteer of the Year, Katy Powell.
Thank you, Betsy. And now I'd love to welcome to the stage another person who has worked tirelessly on this cause and has been the champion not just for us, but for causes across the state that have made Oregon the wonderful place to live that it is. Please join me in welcoming our governor, Barbara Roberts.
It's okay, Betsy, I'm short too. I'm going to move some paper up here. I don't want to deliver somebody else's remarks. Ooh, I have light right in my eye. That's really much light. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you. Thank you so much for being part of this special evening. I am always excited when an event celebrates an historical landmark at the same time it launches plans for the future, and tonight is such a night. This 20th anniversary of the passage of Oregon's Death with Dignity law brings so many memories for me. 1997 was the second time that Oregon had passed the law. The first time was while I was governor in 1994, and that measure had both my support and my public endorsement. My late husband, Senator Frank Roberts, had been the leading proponent of the law, introducing it 3 times in the legislature. The first 2 legislative sessions, he could not even get a hearing on his bill, even though he was a senior member of that body. But he was a man before his time, and he wasn't about to quit. In 1991, as I began my first months as Oregon's new governor, Frank, once again for the 3rd time, introduced his Death with Dignity bill. Frank's health was showing the results of his re-diagnosis of cancer, but he wasn't about to give up on this bill or his commitment to compassion at the end of life for every Oregonian. His legislative colleagues were, of course, finally recognizing his health challenges, and finally they let him have a hearing on his bill. Now, it may have simply been a sympathy hearing, but on that historic day in the Oregon Capitol, the stage was set. The legislature again that day failed to take any action on Frank's bill, but a coalition emerged from that hearing that successfully came out of that hearing and placed over a period of time a measure on the ballot for death with dignity by initiative petition in 1994. Frank died on Halloween in 1993, but not before he understood that the initiative was happening, the signatures were being gathered, and his hopes could well become a reality in Oregon. And after 2 successes at the Oregon ballot in both 1994 and 1997, Oregon became the nation's first state to put this law of death with dignity, the right into the hands of every single Oregonian, the right to end of life choice. And tonight we celebrate that 20-year landmark, and I think it's worth some applause. As Barbara Coombsley said, a lot of people made it happen. And tonight, Compassionate Choices publicly launched what you just heard, its new program, Truth in Treatment. Truth in Treatment will help people with advanced illnesses maintain control of their health care and their health choices. Often our system uses treatment that causes needless pain and suffering, even when that treatment will not provide a realistic path back to health. We do have choices, and we must learn to ask the questions that count. Once again, I must turn to my personal mentor on the subject of end of life, Frank Roberts. I remember the day in the early 1990s when Frank and I waited together in his doctor's office for the results of his latest medical tests. This was not a new experience for us. We'd been through it many times. But Frank felt good, and he was confident that day that this routine medical test would be like every other time he had taken it. He was a survivor of 4.5 years, and he really believed that this would be no different than the other times. His cancer treatment had put him permanently in a wheelchair, but he continued to serve in the state Senate, and as always, he was productive and always hopeful. But that day in the medical office, his hopes were crushed. His doctor sat down beside us. Frankie said, "I'm sorry to report that your cancer has spread to your lungs. There's no good news here. This is a terminal condition. You've got about a year at the most." The room was silent. Frank closed his eyes, and after a period of silence, the doctor did something I will never understand. He told Frank that he would set up an appointment for the following week to begin chemotherapy. Frank and I looked at each other confused, and then Frank asked the two questions every patient in his position should ask. Will this treatment extend my life? The doctor answered yes. And then the second critical question, for how long? The doctor hesitated a moment, and then he answered, a month, maybe even 6 weeks. For Frank, chemo was not about cure. It was not about hope. This was about nothing about quality of life or kindness. It was a routine medical response, a one-size-fits-all answer. Frank said no to the treatment. He opted to maintain the most quality of life and the most control possible for the time he had remaining. He never regretted that decision. That is what truth in treatment is all about. Your life, your choice. So once again, Compassion and Choices is beginning a national movement. Their dedication and caring view of end of life brought physician aid in dying to Oregon and Washington and Vermont and Montana and California and Washington, D.C. and Colorado. Now, their leadership and concern for patients' quality health choices has created truth in treatment. Their frank approach to healthcare choices and treatments has now handed Americans an education and a set of tools to create a safe and sane path through your health care journey. So you will soon be hearing more and more about the trust card and about the diagnostic decoder and about the critical questions you can learn to ask and about making your voice heard and opening the health care conversations. Now there will be websites and materials, and now they will be available to each of you. Compassion and Choices has once again taken the first steps in igniting a social movement that will put healthcare options, patient-doctor communication, and treatment choices in the hands of the person most impacted, you. That's what this will do. And when those decisions are about a terminal diagnosis, Patients can consider stepping off that conveyor belt of do everything, and like Frank Roberts, you can say uncle to any further treatment. Compassionate Choices is building this new consumer-driven movement to give people the permission, the opportunity, and the courage to live their lives on their own terms, so the days of their life that remain will be both meaningful and authentic. That's what it's about. So once again, Compassionate Choices has earned my respect and my very strong support. Tonight, I am asking for your support. Now, I'll be honest with you, I could take about 10 minutes at this point, and I could pitch right now. I could do my money pitch, 10 minutes, we could just take up that time, and I could keep asking the questions, but I'm not going to do that. I'm simply not going to do that. I hope I have made my case for strong support of Compassion's work. Please use the envelopes that are being passed around and that you will see this evening. Show your respect and your support for this organization that is changing America, changing healthcare choices, and changing end of life. They are depending on you, and so am I. Thank you so much for your attention and your support.